With an unprecedented stock market and shaky inflation, today's video we're going to be talking about saving $10,000 in an account, guys, so you can have that money set aside and really understanding how you can break it down piece by piece, getting to that $10,000 goal. Now, this can look a lot different for individuals, but getting into 2024, we want to make sure that we are getting on the savings plan and breaking down the goal to achieve it in 2024. As the saying goes, there's only one way to eat an elephant. That is one bite at a time, guys. That is a old and classic savings. So whether you're looking at saving $1,000 or $10,000, it is really about saving and automating that savings $1 at a time. When you think about saving $10,000 a year, what does it break down to in really the multiplication of looking at per day, you got to save $27. That is right, guys. If you can put away $27 a day, it really breaks it down to really the 365 days a year. If you're looking at per week, it is $192. And again, automating this with your savings and automating it right off the top. So what I'm saying is if you're setting up, let's say, direct deposit from your employer, you have $192 every single week when you get paid going into an account that is going to be set aside and earmarked for something special, whether it's going to be a vacation, whether it's going to be this is how you're building your emergency fund. But overall, it makes a really big difference. But that is $833 a month. That is right. That is the magical number. But I know for a majority of people, guys, it is about the fundamental logic in the psychology behind the savings account itself. Now, savings account, of course, are not going to make you rich. Heard a great quote yesterday. It said, how many millionaires do you see that became millionaires by utilizing a savings account? When you look at money, when you look at inflation, when you look at the devaluation of money, or essentially the buying power that you lose year over year, ultimately putting money in a savings account is a losing battle. You're never going to get rich just putting money in a savings account. That is the reason why we talk about investing on a regular basis. So why do we want to build this savings up? So what is the purpose? And this is where you kind of have to personalize it, guys. You could look at building an emergency fund. Super important to have 3 to 6 months of savings once you eliminate the debt. Now, I do not advise going in and putting money into a savings account if you're sitting on an absorbent amount of debt. When you look at credit card debt, when you look at any high interest debt, it is imperative that you pay that off first before you get into the savings mode. But saving for a down payment for a car, saving for a kid's college fund, overall financial security, looking at your bucket list, possibly doing a vacation. It's a really big difference. And I know this personally, when you save for something and pay for it yourself, you know, in a world where it is so easy to go out if you need anything and finance, $5, $10, $15, $20,000 just to get the cash, paying it back over a multitude of years. But when you look at that, if you're borrowing, let's say even $10,000, you're going to end up paying about $13,000 or $14,000, even with good credit over 3 to 5 years. So essentially, you're paying for the item over an extended amount of time, and that cost that is associated with it. I mean, imagine if you put that $3,000 or $4,000 for work for you in the stock market over those 5 years, you could have a lot more money, and essentially, you're just paying to borrow the money. Let's break this down, guys. Number one, evaluate your income and your expenses. Of course, this is income minus your expenses is what you have left over. Now, like I said before, for a majority of us, this is setting it up early. So if you can set it up in the beginning, if you can automate it. So if I have $100 out of every single paycheck going into another account, I'm not even going to see it. It really changes what you're bringing home. So your monthly income minus your expenses, and you can kind of adjust it from there. Make sure that you're building it into the budget, guys. A lot of people do not build it into the budget. When you look at your budget, a majority of us have fixed expenses. That is the key, and that is a majority of individuals. When you look at rent, when you look at mortgages, when you look at car payments, healthcare, home, auto insurance, most of that is all completely set. The big part where is the variable is the wants category. When you break it into needs and wants, when you break that wants category out, look for places that you can actually reduce your expenses. That way you have a little bit more to save. And again, for me personally, I play a little game where seeing how long during different stints that I do not spend any money at all. Now, short of, let's say, gas for a vehicle, but going to the store, making little stops, eating out, things of that nature, it does get expensive and it adds up a lot more than you think. Number two, making a budget. That is right. The easiest one to follow and that I personally use is the zero-based budgeting. Takes a little time to set up, but budgeting, guys, everybody talks about it and there is a reason for it. Budgeting has to be followed whether you're doing the 50-30-20, which I found a little bit constricting. That is why I did the zero-based budgeting. So essentially looking at your income and then looking at your expenses, whatever you have left, you're going to allocate into a bucket to get to that zero. So for me personally, I go ahead and I get my income, I minus all my expenses out. The extra bucket that I have is what I put into investment accounts. And I've been doing this on a weekly basis on this channel. We put $1,000 into our savings account or our investment account every single week. We're already at $4,000 in, including money that I've put in there previously. So definitely check out those videos, but making sure that you're covering all your necessary expenses and then really putting to work the money that you have left over. And you'll also notice, guys, when you get to that last bucket, that can also be one that is huge when it comes to the debt repayment. Every single dollar that you're putting back on your debt is less money that future you is paying in interest, which can be an absolute game changer over time. And number three, looking at where you can trim your expenses. For a lot of people, they kind of blend the needs and the wants category. And this is what I see traditionally when I do financial education and financial counseling. It seems like there's a little bit of a leeway, or there's things that they don't put in the budget. We see gym memberships, we see subscription services, going out to eat on a regular basis, which can be very, very expensive. There's a lot of different ways, again, that you can kind of cut some things. There's also a lot of places that you can change some of those fixed expenses. So if that is refinancing a mortgage, refinancing a card, consolidating all your debt, which I recommend under very certain circumstances. So if you're looking to refinance debt, guys, you have to stop, and you have to stop accumulating new debt. So it can be an incredibly powerful tool where if you're sitting on credit cards at 20, 22, 25%, you consolidate everything into a 10% unsecured loan. The only way this works, and I really caution you guys, the only way this works is if you continue to pay down and pay off that debt at the same amount that you were doing before and not accumulating the new debt. You have to budget, guys. You have to really make this work. Number four, step up your income. This might be permanent. This might be situational. This might be getting a side hustle, looking at Uber, looking at Lyft, looking at all of the online things you can do during the weekends, during the evenings. There's a multitude of ways, even if it is short term. When you look at your temporary or short term sacrifice, you can build up a little bit of money, pay off that debt, and then utilize your income, which is the biggest, powerful, really the most important tool you'll ever have in your life. When you think of if you start working from 16 to 18 and you retire at 62, you have about 40 plus years of income in there. What you do with it will really make a game changer for the rest of your life. Now, a lot of people do pick up hobbies. Now, there's a big difference between like a side hustle or a side income and a hobby. A hobby is where you really don't make any money from it. You might enjoy to do it. It might be something that you love to do, but income makes a big difference, guys. And especially with passive income, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of talk on passive income. Could you rent out your house? Do you have dividend stocks? Are you getting paid for some of your investments? There's a multitude of ways to really go through and make that passive income. Number five, decide where to put the money. That is right, guys. Decide where to put your money. Very important that you do this. And with a emergency fund, with a $10,000, you do not want it just sitting in a savings account. Savings accounts pay about a 0.3%, which means your $10,000 is getting eaten up every single year with inflation. You have to make sure, guys, high yield savings accounts, money market accounts, CDs, but again, emergency fund wise, high yield savings account would be my preference. Personally, I use M1 Finance. There's a link down below that I include. M1 Finance does have a 5% high yield savings account. So you're beating out inflation a little bit, but overall, guys, like I said before, money is meant to be invested. But if you're looking to save it in the bank, which again, we do have some savings, liquid savings, just in case of an emergency in the bank, but making sure that you're getting a return on that as well. And the final one, guys, automating the savings. I've said this before, and I would continue to. Automating the savings is the only way that you're going to stick to it. Where if the money is in the bank, it is being transferred somewhere else and make it a little bit more difficult to get to. Now, the reason I say this is if you're at a financial institution and you have your checking there, you have your credit card there, you have all of your relationship there, and you have that little savings account and you're putting money in that savings account, it's super easy to just click a couple buttons and transfer that money over, meaning you're cleaning out your savings, or to justify an expense that is not really a emergency, but the justification can still be there. And again, it makes a big difference, guys, when you're putting it somewhere else. Not super difficult or takes a long time to get to if there is an emergency, but still something that you have to go outside of your way to have access to. So again, breaking it down, guys, $27 a day, $192 a week, or $833 a month will put you on par for $10,000 a month or $10,000 a year within that savings account. So make sure, guys, automating that, getting it set up, building your budget, knowing exactly what debt you're going to repay and what you're going to use that money for. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.